This is great article by Forbes, how a Ukrainian brigade turned a river into a natural barrier under North Korean assault. When the North Korean 11th Army Corps finally marched into battle along the edges of a 250-square-mile salient Ukrainian troops hold in western Russia's Kursk Oblast last weekend, the long lines of North Korean infantry, striding across open fields in broad daylight, ran headlong into a wall of Ukrainian firepower. All but one of the assaults ended in bloody defeat, leaving as many as 200 North Koreans dead and wounded out of a total deployed force of around 12,000. And the assault that did succeed was a Pyrrhic victory for the 11th Army Corps, according to one Ukrainian analysis group. In Plekhov, a village just south of the Sel River on the eastern edge of the salient, a 100-person Ukrainian garrison initially held out against two waves of around 150 North Koreans. But the attackers kept coming. The North Korean soldiers went to the assault en masse, or more precisely, in a crowd, Ukrainian journalist Andriy Tsaplienko reported. The Ukrainian garrison in Plekhov finally retreated when a third wave of North Koreans attacked from the east. But the retreat was a calculated one, according to the Ukrainian Center for Defense Strategies. Ukrainian troops did not cling to Plekhov at any cost, but withdrew north of the Sel River. This put an imposing natural barrier between the combined Russian-North Korean force and the main Ukrainian unit in the area, the 61st Mechanized Brigade. This forces the enemy to cross open terrain to attack positions whose layout is unknown to them, all under strikes from UAVs and artillery, according to CDS. Dug in north and west of the winding Sel, the Ukrainians have been firing with abandon at the North Koreans and Russians who've been struggling to approach the river, cross it, and establish a bridgehead in the days since Plekhov fell to the North Koreans. Dozens of assaults over the past few days have ended at the distant approaches to Ukrainian defenses, CDS reported. The failed attacks have added to Russia and North Korea's growing tally of losses. In just its first weekend of fighting, the North Korean 11th Army Corps may have lost 4% of its manpower, a rate of loss that's unsustainable over the long term. The problem for the Ukrainians is that surrendering any ground in Kursk is risky. Their salient measures roughly 12 miles by 12 miles. The calculated retreat from Plekhov put a 5-mile deep dent in the salient. The Ukrainians skillfully uses terrain and maneuver tactics, CDS crowed. But the Kursk salient offers little terrain and sparse space to maneuver. It is reported that Kiev was attacked by 5 Iskander-M KN-23 ballistic missiles and 2 Kh-47M2 Kinzhal Arrow ballistic missiles. There is damage to cars after debris fell on them. One person is killed and tens are wounded. It is believed that this is the Russian response for the killing of the Russian general Igor Kirillov in Moscow. Russian Telegram channels posted videos of fiber optic cable FPV strikes on a Ukrainian Abrams tank in Kursk Oblast last week. Aside from a concussion, the crew survived without injury and made it back to friendly lines. Rob Lee is writing on X that he and Michael Kaufman spoke to the commander of the tank from Ukraine's 47th Mechanized Brigade about what happened, and here is what he told them. That's our tank. But they only posted 2 of the strikes. Yesterday, from last week, was the first time that the crew survived multiple hits while inside a disabled Abrams. Actually, there were 4 to 6 direct hits. The crew survived, and even without injuries. God bless America. Fiber optic FPVs. Between 4 and 6 hits within like 2 minutes. I believe that at least 1 more got stuck in the net. 2 more missed several minutes before. They apparently hit the engine. They were unable to penetrate either the turret or the hull elsewhere while we were inside. Although they tried and had a lot of time. As I said, this tank had a unique cope cage, actually cope netting, and a lot more ERA than an average Abrams. We, the crew, designed the arrangement of the ERA completely on our own based on an analysis of the previous hits on all the other Abrams tanks and our own knowledge of the weak spots. And that's why we still live after so many simultaneous strikes. And that's why the Abrams rocks. Would be impossible on a Russian or Soviet T-series tank. Russian FPV crews hit the tank with several more FPVs after it was abandoned, but the tank was not destroyed and might still be salvageable. Because of recent advances, Russian forces may capture it. When I asked how they made it back to friendly lines, on foot, It was close to the Russian positions. We finished the combat mission and drove back just 1 kilometer from the Russians or even less. We could not evacuate because the FPVs were coming one after another. When I finally could hear no sound, we just jumped out of the tank and ran to a tree line. They were tracking us, so a mortar started working with some more drones, but we crawled away through the tree line. In the end, in a spot still under FPV control, our company commander rushed in and took us away. Russians execute their soldiers for refusing to go on an assault. Exclusive interview with a DIU intelligence officer.
They were just shouting on air that we don't have enough forces to storm here. They themselves didn't believe it. The enlisted personnel are going to war. The women themselves say that the losses the governors pay out have come. It's horror, just horror. So they're ready to do anything for money, ready. The commander personally shot 2 servicemen. They took a small bridgehead from us, you know how? Thanks to the crossing. Only their own boys, and they moved over their own boys. Can you imagine the 21st century when they decapitate someone? Well then, and this is the elite. The 155th Separate Marine Brigade, it went through every service. This one was taken in bulk and directly in conversation. The general called his wife and said he wants boots like Galas, the criminals of the 27th Separate Monastic Brigade of the 1st Tank Army. They will be found and punished.
Russian propagandist Simonyan. I think it will come to a threat of striking one of the capitals that create an immediate threat to Russia's security, existence, and sovereignty. It means Russia will have the right to strike. And I think that's where it's heading. I don't see any other way.
I also don't think that we will hit, as you say, hit anyone. I think it will come to such a threat. You see, we will be forced to warn. We will wake up one morning and hear that the escalation has reached a point where Russia sees a direct threat of its security, sovereignty, existence. This threat is created by such and such countries and not Ukraine at all. Ukraine's threat hasn't grown, creating a threat to us, you understand? It was also obvious from the very beginning. So Russia considers itself entitled to strike one of the capitals of these countries, for example. Here's time until morning to leave the premises, for example. But do you think this is a real option? Is it possible? Yes, in reality. I think that's where everything is heading. I don't see another way out.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.